HLNA reporting for adventure.
Hello, 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 hello. So, I noticed online there's internet personality who's struggling to feed themselves. They're eating canned beans and stale bread, and people have suggested to them to get rice in a rice cooker. And I think while as good as rice is, You need more than just rice to have a good complete diet, or at least something close that resembles a good complete diet. So I don't know exactly what local produce is available to this person. If they're from a more northern climate with a colder weather, if that was the case, I might suggest things such as cabbage, spinach, carrots, peaches, apples, things of that sort. Squash, pumpkin, winter squash, butternut squash, things like that. Um, as for a protein source, depends on where they want to go for the protein. So if they're getting if they want fresh protein, I would suggest maybe hunting and fishing. But if they're just looking for something affordable from Amazon, my suggestion would be canned chicken meat. I've noticed on Amazon canned chicken meat sells for about 37 cents an ounce, or between 27 cents and 37 cents an ounce. It's significantly cheaper than canned sardines. It is protein. Now, you got to keep in mind that there's a lot of salt per can, so you got to keep that in mind. You don't want to just go and eat a bunch of those cans. And there's only about 100 calories. Well, there's about 100, 200 calories per can of chicken. So you're not going to get your full daily value of calories, but you're going to definitely get a good dose of protein. Probably all you really need for a day, really, in a can of canned chicken. So that would be my suggestion to them: is either to explore hunting and fishing, or to buy some if they want to go from Amazon, canned chicken would be my suggestion. Now, I know that in some countries that struggle with food, in the United States, we have a bit of what's called a feral hog problem. Now, the feral hog problem, I really don't think it's a problem at all. Farmers think it's a problem. I think that it's a possible source of food for people that are missing out on a lot of food. If you look in the worldwide market, there's a type of ham called Iberico ham, and while it does eat acorns, while the hog does eat acorns, the main reason why it's such a treasured type of ham is because it's pasture fed. And when they mean pasture fed, they mean it's not just being fed slop garbage every day. So the meat is often leaner and has more of a nutrient dense flavor and more flavor dense profile than your average farm raised meat. Which is funny because the traditional farm raised ham is very similar to a Japanese Wagyu. Now, I've noticed some people online who butcher ham for a living call your farm raised ham garbage meat, which is very funny because it's all a matter of perspective. So we view a farm raised ham, or this person online views a farm raised ham as garbage meat. I'm sure somebody from Japan who would argue otherwise, because in Japan, marbling on meat, fat content on meat, from my understanding, is looked at highly, and it is a prized thing to have. I think because maybe it represents prosperity, and in our culture, there's something called having back fat, and having back fat means having a little something extra. Now in Japan, I'm gonna guess because since they're an island nation, it's a rare occurrence to have livestock that's full of fat. So when you have a cow, the Wagyu, that's full of fat, it's an impressive feat to achieve. So yeah, I would guess that what one would consider here as garbage ham, one in Japan would consider as prized ham. Whereas the Iberico ham, which is prized worldwide, to a blind taste tester in Japan, it might not be very impressive. While it's flavor rich and nutrient rich, it lacks fat content to the extent that I think the Japanese look for. I could be mistaken though. Anyways, back to the matter at hand. This person who's struggling to feed themselves, my advice to them is if you can find affordable meat at your store, go ahead and check that out. See if they got rabbit. Rabbit is a pretty sustainable meat, and in fact, some people end up with rabbit meat not even with the intention of farming the rabbit meat. Some people end up with the meat of the hare from simply being avid fans of rabbits and wanting to raise them for shows. And what ends up happening is sometimes you end up with what they consider a genetic failure or a genetic dud. And what they do then is they slaughter the rabbit, skin it, and stick the rest in the freezer. So my advice to you would be, if you could find a rabbit breeder. Now, once again, it all depends on where you're at. If you're from a colder climate, it's more likely that you'll find people with extra rabbit meat, and you might be able to affordably purchase some. And if you can't, you yourself might want to get into raising rabbits. I know you don't want to see those cute bunnies die every day. I know you don't want to see it, but you gotta eat, buddy. You gotta eat, so sometimes you gotta do what you gotta do. So if you're from a more northern climate, struggling to feed yourself, my advice would be rabbit keeping. Now, most people would probably say, keep chickens. Chickens, they give you eggs and you can eat them. Well, the problem with chickens is, okay. You got a fair point there, but the problem with chickens, they've got a few problems. One problem is chickens need special feed in order to lay eggs. I myself keep chickens, mostly not necessarily for the eggs, although they are an egg-laying breed. If I were to choose to, I could get them to lay eggs every day. But it might shorten their lifespan because in order to get a chicken to lay an egg, you have to basically overfeed them. And I come from a hotter climate where overfeeding chickens can be possibly fatal. They can die of obesity. So I don't want to go and overfeed my chickens, even if it means an egg a day, because I would much rather keep my chickens for an elongated time. Now, I bet you're wondering, why would you rather keep your chickens than get eggs? Well, the reason for that is the chickens help to break down decomposing matter. Not only that, but they help to manage the bug population by eating grubs and meal and worms and things. Not only that, but they also, what else do the chickens do? They help to break down stuff. Oh, here we go. This is the clincher. So, worldwide, well, at least the United States, but I imagine some other areas, you might be familiar with a species of grass called Johnson grass. Now, the reason it's called Johnson grass is a man went to Australia, saw this beautiful, delicious grass growing by a river, and he said, this grass, if it can grow in Australia, it can grow across the world. We can feed everything. We can grow cows anywhere. And what ended up happening is he took that grass to the United States, I believe it was Mississippi, and it got loose. See, the thing is, Johnson grass makes a multitude of seeds. So, one issue with Johnson grass is all the seeds, they just keep sprouting and sprouting and sprouting. So it's actually a strategy to get rid of weeds. But Johnson grass, as a weed, uses its that strategy to implement itself. So what you do, here's what Johnson grass does. So what it does is it spreads so much seed that over time it will overtake any land, any territory that is around. Now, Johnson grass is not the strongest root system. It is not the most powerful, most drought-resistant, most. It's not the grass with the most going on for it survival-wise. But because it multiplies at such a vicious rate, it is hard to kill. Now, the thing that you do was guess who loves seeds? You guessed it, chickens. Chickens love seeds. So what you do is you get chickens. If you have Johnson grass, you get chickens. and they get rid of the seeds, and without being able to reproduce seed-wise, the Johnson grass fades off into obscurity, never to be seen again. And you always wonder, what happened to that Johnson grass? Oh yeah, that's right, I got chickens. So when you keep chickens, you keep Johnson grass out. Keep chickens, keep weeds out. So I keep my chickens so that I don't have to always be pulling weeds. No, I don't got to do that. The chickens take care of the problem before it comes to fruition. So, yeah, my advice to you is, if you are interested in keeping chickens, keep them alive. They serve you better alive. Even if they're not laying eggs, they got a job and they can do it. So leave them to it. But yeah, I love my chickens. I think they're awesome. Unfortunately, I think they are getting a bit old. But I'm hoping they'll still got at least maybe 5 years in them. And I've had them for a while now, but I plan to keep them as long as I can. And once again, I've got chickens that are a mutant breed. They are called a star. They are the star breed. One of them was a black star, but that one passed away. That was our eldest chicken. I think it was about 12 to 15 years old. And it helped to teach the other chickens how to survive. And I'm very grateful for that. You see, most people, when your chicken gets old and won't lay eggs, but my chickens never get that old because, once again, they are the star breed. The black star can lay an egg 365 days a year, all the way to the day of its death. And mine did. Lulu was a good chicken. But what ends up happening is oftentimes chicken breeders, chicken keepers, they keep their chickens as long as they lay eggs, and when they get too old to lay eggs, they slaughter them and eat them. Now, I just can't bring myself to do that because I know that strategically it's better to keep your old chickens alive. And the reason for that is they can teach the new generation how to survive. And they do. They really do, because I've tested it, and I've kept chickens that were from farms, and they were, oh my gosh, they were so crazy. They didn't know what up or down was. They were insane. They did not know how to survive. I believe that chicken from the farm, when a dog came and attacked, it was one of the first to go. And the reason for that is it never wanted to learn lessons from the eldest black star. So that's the thing. You want to raise your chickens from chicks, and you want to have them raised around older chickens. And they'll be smart enough to survive. You could go ahead and get a chicken from somebody else fully raised, and it'll probably still serve you just as well as a chicken that you raised yourself. But if you raise a chicken yourself with the help of the older chickens, your chicken's going to have a higher chance of survival. So that's what I do. That's my advice to you, if you are a chicken keeper. But anyways, I keep my chickens for weed control, and the occasional egg is nice to have as well. But also they help to fertilize the lawn. I like that. I like that they do that. But yeah, so that's everything about the chicken. Pest control, weed control, breaking down things, and fertilization. They're awesome. Awesome animal, awesome creature. But if you're not focused on that, we're not talking about that stuff. We're talking about food. If you're looking for food security, my advice to you is, if you're from a northern climate that gets colder, chickens. If you're from a southern climate that's a little bit, not chickens. If you're from a northern climate that gets colder, rabbits. If you're from a southern climate that might be too hot to have a rabbit comfortably live, you might want to keep iguanas. So that would be my advice to our friend who is struggling to find more to eat then a can of beans, and stale bread. My advice to him would be consider keeping, if you are from a northern climate, rabbits. If you are from a southern climate, iguanas. If not iguanas, snakes. Those are all valid sources of protein, and they are not very high maintenance to keep, and they produce at a rate that you could sustainably feed yourself with good quality food. So there you go. That's my advice to you. But currently, if you until you get yourself situated, I would say check out canned chicken. Canned chicken, for the amount of protein you get, it's pretty affordable. But once again, I would not. If I were you, I would not just stick to canned chicken, because while it is inexpensive, it still does cost money. So if you're struggling with money and you're looking to feed yourself, at some point you might want to get into animal livestock, and the best stock I would suggest to you is rabbits and iguanas. And the cool thing about rabbits and iguanas is not only can you eat them, but if you can get a quality breed of rabbit or iguana, you can take it to shows and win awards. So like, let's say you have a local farmers association close by, and they do an animal show or a rodeo every once in a while. Well, you take your animal to that show, and if it wins a prize, I mean, you get a cool prize. So that's a bonus to it. So yeah, that's my advice. Bit of animal stock, and you really don't need a very large space to keep rabbits and to keep iguanas. Now the thing is the variation of diet. So rabbits, for the most part, eat grass. That should be simple enough for you to find. Iguanas can be a little more complicated. They like bugs, and they like fresh vegetables like lettuce, cabbage, things like that. Not too much different than a turtle. But yeah, you could totally be grubbing on that, and they'll crank out some new ones every once in a while, and you'll be fed for pretty much ever. And if you get a star, like let's say you get something that you find really really cool, like let's say you keep breeding your iguanas and you end up with a navy blue iguana, and you're like, wow, this is a prize. Well, go ahead and take that to a show, and see if you can win a prize from it. So yeah, that would be my advice. Livestock keeping, iguanas and rabbits, depending on your climate. And in the meantime, canned chicken. That's the most affordable stuff I could find online. But another thing to check out is hunting. So if you're from around the Florida area, you might be able to hunt iguana without causing any problems. If you're from a northern climate, you might be able to hunt rabbits without causing any problems. So you might want to check that out. But once again, our ancient ancestors from Mesopotamia and afterwards learned that animal husbandry can have its benefits. So while hunting wild game and fish can be beneficial, and it is for the most part what our ancestors did, keeping animals can also be beneficial because you got a bit of food security. Now, you create more waste and you waste more energy keeping animals, but you've got a higher chance of having something to put on the table if times get desperate, if a drought happens or something of that sort. Yeah, I myself, I think iguanas are a bit much because they have that tail whip. So I myself have considered snake keeping, just because they really don't look much different than a sardine. and they cost significantly less water, and I imagine the protein content is probably around the same. And I imagine you cook them long enough in a pressure cooker, and that those bones are probably going to turn into nice mushy stuff. Keep some snakes. Take those pretty ones that have like the digital designs on them. Like, you can breed a snake to have a digital skull on the snake. So you take those ones to the show, get a prize, maybe some prize money, and then the rest of them that don't come out that way, you eat them. Pressure cook them up, can them, save them for later, eat them. So, I mean, that's it's not too complicated. Could be something to do. But yeah, if I were in that personality's shoes, and we all could be. Everybody is just a few decisions away from being stuck eating canned beans and stale bread. So yeah, I myself been looking into snake farming. I would probably suggest that to anybody who would like to participate in where their meat comes from, in meat production for themselves, so that they can see where the meat comes from and have a full understanding of that. But yeah, rabbits, snakes, and iguanas could be the future of food. Holy smokes, though, buying that stuff is expensive. Fresh? And it's kind of foolish, if you ask me. On Amazon, I noticed somebody was selling, I think it was 3 whole, cut, cleaned rabbits, and it's about $100 for the 3 of them. And I was just thinking to myself, why would I pay so much for this quote-unquote fresh meat that's traveled possibly 100 miles if I can get a can of chicken for way less that's already cooked, ready to eat? Oh my gosh. Yeah, it's crazy. It's crazy because in my opinion, canned chicken is a higher quality of meat than whatever I would have cooked from rabbit, unless I learned how to really smoke it. Some people they know how to smoke meat so that it's very tender, very juicy, and full of flavor from both the wood and full of flavor from the meat's chemical reactions to the wood. So you've got a little bit of ash, or not ash necessarily, but you've got a little bit of wood chemicals stuck in there, but you've also got a chemical reaction that happens between the wood and the meat, and it makes some interesting flavors. So if I learned how to properly do that, do it what they call low and slow, yeah, I mean, I might understand purchasing 3 rabbits for $100 for the fresh meat, if I had the skill to do so. Now, me personally, I am not a grill boss. I'm not a pit boss. I'm not a grill master. So I would more than likely just fry it up in a skillet, which would probably end up in something not tasting much better than canned chicken. So I would much rather just skip all the BS, eat the canned chicken, and have that over and through with. That's me personally. But I can see the benefit of. I can see why some people might purchase rabbit over the internet, the raw form of the meat. If you're like a specialty cook and that's your thing, I can understand it. But just for practicality's sake, canned chicken, affordable, pretty nutritional, and not too bad of an option, it looks like. Once again, you don't want to rely on market-bought food, so where you can, it's a good idea to produce what you can for yourself. to play a part in the production of your food. But finding a deal isn't always a bad thing, and I would say at the moment, canned chicken is quite a deal. I mean, you just can't beat ready-made, ready-to-eat, already cooked food. At least, I can't beat that idea. And one of the best things is it can just sit on the shelf for quite some time. So I mean, that's a plus too. But yeah, yeah, I myself, I focus quite a bit on canned chicken. Now, every once in a while, my chickens do lay an egg, so I eat that as well. But I would like to get into snake farming, and there's a member in my community that that does snake farm for the purpose of making beautiful snakes, not necessarily to eat the snakes. But I wouldn't mind learning a thing or two from them about the ins and outs of snake farming, and take some of their practices to snake farm meat for myself and leather. My ideal would be to farm the snake and then pressure cook the snake with the skin on, very similar to the way sardines are prepared, and can the snake the way a sardine would be prepared. And I think that would be an ideal setup. Now, one of the issues is I don't know about the toughness of snake scale, so I don't know for sure if that would be a possible option, but if it was an option to prepare them the way sardines are prepared, I would go for that. If not, then the snake leather is valuable in its own sense. The only problem is I would need to find I would need to find a person who handles and cures and deals with leather in order to do that. And I just don't think the demand for snake leather is so high that that you would find a purchaser of that stuff as often as you eat the meat of the snake. So preferably I would rather prepare the snakes the way sardines are prepared, but if not, then I can understand preparing it very similar to how canned chicken is prepared, where, you know, it's boneless, skinless, all that stuff, and then you take the skins, of course, tan them, and I guess sell the leather at rodeos or something. I don't know. That would be my guess. One thing I thought could be neat, but would probably upset a lot of people, is raising rattlesnakes and breeding them specifically to have large rattlers, and then releasing 2/3 of the eggs produced at my farm into the wild. You see, when I was a kid, I remember reading a story about how the Texas rattlesnake is slowly losing its rattle because people go out and hunt the rattlesnake for its rattle. They listen for the rattler, and they kill the snake that has the rattle, and and that's causing the snakes to slowly evolve to lose the rattle because the snakes with smaller rattlers don't get hunted. So my ideal would be to follow the Brazilian practice of crocodile farming, where they steal a crocodile egg from the wild, and then from that egg, or from that cluster of eggs, they raise a farm of crocodiles. And when that farm of crocodiles begins producing eggs, they then take the eggs produced from their farm, find the place where they had stolen the eggs initially, and put the eggs there. And that way they have a level of sustainability to their operation. And the reason for that is because when you take from nature, you have to give back to nature. So they take the crocodile from nature, but then they give back. And not only do they give back, but they give back oftentimes more than they initially took. So their crocodile population is not in danger, at least in the way that that farm practices crocodile farming. So if I were to snake farm, I wouldn't mind doing it that way. Now the issue is, of course, if you farm rattlesnakes, you're probably gonna die. But I mean, everybody's probably gonna die at some point. So I don't know. I'm still weighing it out. I mean, on one hand, it might be smarter to farm a less deadly snake. But on the other hand, farming the rattlesnake could help my environment, my ecosystem, and could help keep the rattlesnake from going endangered or extinct anytime in the future. And you get a cool rattler. But once again, you got to worry about getting killed by venom. So I don't know. I'm still weighing that one out. I mean, on one hand, the rattlesnake is meaty, it's leathery, it's got a rattle, it's cool. But on the other hand, it's got deadly venom. And oh my gosh, that I imagine it is not fun dying to rattlesnake venom. So, still weighing that one out. I'm thinking the garden snake would be a smarter choice for meat. But I mean, there's benefits to the rattlesnake. So I haven't quite worked out the details, but definitely keeping that in the back of my mind. Thinking about that every once in a while. The snake farm. Just the sense of food security from it. See, the thing about snakes is they eat rodents and they eat insects. So, in theory, I could use food waste to grow insects, feed the insects to the snakes, and you got yourself meat and leather. So, that could be good. Another option I've been exploring is the African bullfrog. Now, one of the issues with that is I don't want to go and introduce African bullfrogs into my environment. And the reason for that is the last time somebody went introducing foreign exotic creatures into the environment of the Americas was during the movie Frogs, 1978. And when they did that, they introduced the South American cane toad, and it was an awful accident. See, the movie was about preserving your environment, caring for nature, and not upsetting the balance. But the funny thing is, despite the movie's good intentions and good message, they introduced an invasive species. Well, allegedly. They allegedly introduced an invasive species known as the cane frog to Florida's environment. And I don't know if you know what a cane frog is, but a cane toad is a toad which carries poison sac glands on each side of its head. And those poison sac glands carry enough toxic venom to kill many creatures, and often in Florida, they kill people's pets because the frogs go around and they eat the toad, and then the poison overtakes them and they die. So it's awful. It's tragic, but that's one of the consequences of introducing a possible invasive species to your environment. And not only does the cane toad kill a lot of wildlife with its poison, but it also has a ferocious diet. It ends up a lot of the native species with nothing to kill it because it's poisonous, it's toxic. So yeah, you end up with quite an issue there. So I'm worried that if I were to farm African bullfrogs, and if 2 of them got loose and made some babies, they might eat all of my local species and leave nothing alive, which would be a lot of guilt to lay on my shoulders every day. Uh, so I would rather not do that if I don't have to. And knowing that the rattlesnake is local, I think the rattlesnake might be a better option. Although if I were living in Africa, I would totally go for the African bullfrog because not only does it barely drink water, it barely moves around, and you can feed it a whole rat. I'm not talking about a mouse. You can feed it a full-sized sewer rat, and it will eat that thing up, dead or alive. So I mean that's ideal. Go around catching rats, feed them to your African bullfrog, eat the bullfrog, have giant, humongous, tender African bullfrog legs. Feed the rest of the corpse to your dog or cat. That would be an awesome setup, but in my environment, it would not be worth risking my local species to possible extinction. So, I think a better option would be the rattlesnake. I've heard that the boa constrictor population in Florida has gotten pretty high to the point that they actually encourage people to hunt the boa constrictor. Now, this was quite a while ago that I heard this information, so I don't know if it's still true, but that would be some good meat and some good leather. I imagine one thing that could be a little bit of fun to do would be to set up a food truck for turn a food truck into a canning operation. Send your hunters out or your trappers out to find these boa constrictors, take them back, skin them, can them, or cook them, can them, send the leathers to a leather processing plant. That would be a nice. Organization. Well, anyways, we're around that 40-minute mark, so I think that's all we're gonna be doing for today. If you're watching live, thank you so much for watching live. If you're watching the VOD, thank you so much for watching the VOD. This is a charity stream, so if you could, check out the link in the description. And that's all for now, so goodbye. Have a good day.